Hello and welcome back. Now that we understand our After Effects interface a bit better, we can move on and start using it to animate. For this part of our course, we will start working with keyframes and learn how they work and how to use them. We'll go over the different parameters that can be animated using them and their properties, as well as some tips and problems you may encounter while working with them. Keyframes in After Effects work by activating a parameter's stopwatch. This will create a diamond shape in our timeline where our current time indicator is positioned. Once the stopwatch is on, any change to the parameters will be recorded. Changes in the parameters can be done by clicking on the parameter we want to change and setting the value that we want, or by clicking and dragging over the values that will then work as a slider that we can move from left to right. If we press down on the Shift key while dragging, you'll see that the values increase by tenths instead of by increments of 1. If we press Ctrl or Command while dragging, the values will increase by decimals instead of by whole numbers. Keyframe interactions on the timeline. The different transformations for a layer have different keyframe parameters. Position. When using a layer in 2D, the position has two parameters for the X and Y positions, X being left to right and Y being up and down. The best way of animating them is by using a keyframe for both of them, where the movement in any direction is recorded for both parameters. But if we want to record the X and Y parameters separately, we can do so by right-clicking over the position and selecting Separate Dimensions. When we do this, you'll see that we now have a value for X and one for Y that can be animated independently. If you want to go back to working with them together, just right-click and deselect Separate Dimensions. Remember that if you had keyframes for each parameter and you collapse them, this will probably modify your animation path. The anchor point in After Effects is the point in which all transformations are manipulated from. It works the same as the position value, but there is no way of separating the X and Y parameters. Scale has two parameters and a chain link. The first parameter is for the width, and the second one is for the height, but they increase and decrease in proportion to one another unless we uncheck the chain link icon, and we can then change the values independently. Rotation has a value for whole and degree rotations. This means the first value will tell After Effects how many clockwise or counterclockwise rotations we want. The second value will determine how many degrees this rotation should be. Opacity has a single value that defines the percentage of transparency of an object. This value can't go over 100 or under 0. Keyframe interactions in the compositions. Moving any object or changing the scale in our composition will be recorded on our timeline if the stopwatch is set to the on position. This also applies to the anchor and rotation parameters. If we press Shift while moving layers in our composition, we'll lock our movement into a straight axis depending on the direction, either up and down or left and right. The same goes for scale and rotation. If we scale an object by dragging the sides of the bounding box, it will scale disproportionately unless we press the Shift key while dragging it. A quick note is that the scale can go between positive and negative values when we pass 0, meaning our layer will be inverted, so be careful when scaling directly in your composition. Finally, if you want to rotate layers, you can press the Shift key, and objects will rotate in 45-degree increments. Just remember that the rotation parameter is divided into full rotations and degrees. So if we rotate something using the rotation tool directly, we should make sure that we're not adding full rotations instead of just rotating by a certain amount of degrees.